Mark here, going to do a full tutorial over the XYZware for Pro. This is XYZ's printing software for the Vinci Pro 1.0. This software is used to import STL files and prep them to be printed on the DaVinci Pro 1.0. This software is very similar to the XYZware for the DaVinci 1.0. Let's import an STL file first. Going to the upper left hand corner, we'll do import and choose an STL file to import. I'm going to choose this OWL. Clicking the import button, you will see that OWL will be placed in the center of the build area. This bottom grid area is the base of the 3D platen area for the printer. One thing that you'll notice about the software is if you pull files from online, like Thingiverse, you'll notice that they will always import looking to the back of the build area. This is one thing that I wish XYZ would work on with their software, but it's going to be a quick fix. First thing we'll do is learn how to move around in the build area. Starting on the left-hand side, there is a minus and a plus button to zoom in and out of the build area. You are also able to use the center scroll button to scroll in and out. Let's click on the next button, that is the view button. Clicking the view button will give you some of the standard views like top, bottom, front, left, and right. The ones I use the most are the top when I'm moving around STLs or files to be able to print, and the front view to see what my print's going to look like, looking as if I was looking at it being printed. Some other ways to move around the build area is you can press the left mouse button and move around to look at your parts. It's really critical in this software to make sure none of your parts are clashing before they are printed. If they are, you'll have an issue and parts will be printed together. But using the left mouse button, you're able to move around. The center scroll button, you can scroll in and out, as well as if you press the shift button and the left mouse button, you can pan the build area. Let's click on the part again and learn some other commands. Working our way down, there's the move command. Clicking the move command, there are 3 toggles. You can move the part left and right, or in the X direction, forwards or backwards, in the Y direction, or up and back down to the top of the build area. I find the X and Y are used a lot to move your part around the build area, but the Z is not. The only reason I could see using the Z is if the part was in space, you could put it back on the build area. It is possible also to press the land button that will drop the part right on top of the build area. If you guys haven't 3D printed before, it's critical to have the part sitting on the build area when you're starting to print. If not, you have to turn on supports, so it will build a support structure underneath the part. If you don't like how you've moved around the part, you can always press the reset and it'll move the part back into the default origin. Going down, we will look at the rotate command. In the rotate command, you're able to move the part around in space. By clicking with your left mouse button, you're able to spin the part around any degree in 360 degrees. So, like I was saying at the beginning, I always like to rotate my part 180 degrees so it's actually looking out when I'm printing it. This isn't necessary, but sometimes I like to see what the build quality is while it's printing. Also, if this is another learning lesson, if you lose your information on the left-hand side, don't worry, just click back on the part and it'll pop back up. But going back in the rotate command, there are a couple different ways to set your rotation. First, you can click your left mouse button and rotate the part. This, I'm rotating it around the x-axis. Or you can type in the rotation. Let's type in 90 degrees. It will rotate 90 degrees. Or if you click in this box, you can use the up and down keys and it'll rotate it 1 degree at a time. Left mouse button, you can rotate in space. And you can use the up and down buttons to rotate 1 degree at a time. This is really great if you have a lot of parts and you're trying to fit them all in the build area. You can click them one at a time. If you don't like the rotation, you can always press reset. And this will default it back into its XYZ position. Let's go back into the move command and put the owl back on the build area. A nice feature is you're able to quickly move a part without using the X and Y toggles by pressing Alt and clicking on the object with your left mouse button. This will allow you to move it anywhere in the build area. If you can see, the part will turn red if you're outside the build area. This will not print if the part is outside the build area. But this is a quick way that you can move around your part into space. Let's rotate the owl so it's looking out forwards. I'm just going to type in 180 degrees, and there's the owl. Let's look at some other commands. There's the scale command. And the scale command is really useful if you're going to, if you want to resize an object. There's a couple different ways to scale. First, you can grab the size min max and enlarge the object to the maximum size the machine is able to print, or go down into the smallest size that the machine can print. Now, if you guys get down to this size, I wouldn't say all of the detail will be on the part at all. So, but you can adjust the size of the part with just moving around the toggle. You also are able to move around the X, Y, and Z toggles as well. Now, if you want to have this part exactly 100 millimeters tall, just type in 100 millimeters, and the part will be exactly 100 millimeters tall. One thing that you'll notice is that when you are scaling, the part might pull off of the bed, and then you're going to go back into the move command and land the part back on. But don't worry, that's really quick and easy. So let's go back into the scale. And another way that you can scale the object is typing as a percentile. So for example, if I want to have this owl 150 times the size, I just type in 150 and press the apply, and it'll make the owl 150% larger. Below this, there is the scale from millimeters to inches and inches to millimeters. All this does is if STLs can be saved in a couple different units, some people save their STLs in inches and some people save them in millimeters. If your part is imported and it is very, very small, and it should be larger, it's probably saved in inches. So if you press the inch to millimeter button, it will make the part a lot bigger. Again, if you press the millimeter to inches button, it will make it 22 times smaller. One cool feature that's on this new software is the uniform button that you can turn off or on. The uniform button you can turn off or on is great if, for example, if you're going to be printing letters or numbers and they're too tall or you want them a little bit thinner, you're able to squish the part in any direction to get the exact size that you want. So if you wanted to have a letter that was 100 millimeters by 50 millimeters by 5 millimeters tall, you can just type it into these values and it will stretch the STL in any direction that you like. And I really like this feature. And let's say we want to have it 150 millimeters tall. So you can see this owl is a lot thinner than it used to be. So Pretty cool feature. Again, if you guys don't like, or if you're playing around with it and it goes to the wrong size, you can always press reset and it'll go back to the default setting that you had saved in the previous step. Working down, the next button is the info button. I don't really see a big use to having this info button, but it does give you the volume. So if you were going to print a part out and sell it, you could say how big the volume is in the part and maybe have a rough estimate of how much you'd sell the part for. But this might also give you some information about how much material you have left and some other stuff like that. So it's a nice button to have, but I don't see myself using it a lot. And the last one is the remove button. If you click this button, it will delete the part. But let's add another owl into this build area and show how we can move the parts around. Right clicking on the owl, you can press clone this object, and then it makes the other owl. Like we talked about before, if you press the Alt button and the left mouse button, you can move the parts around really quickly. So there we go. Now we have two owls. You can put as many parts in this build area as you like that will fit. And they don't all have to be exactly the same part. For this example, I'm using two of the same owls, but you could have an owl and a mechanical part or anything that you can find online or model and put into this build area. But there are my two owls. Showing you some other tricks, you can actually right click on the part and press land right here, and it will land the part down. And if you right click, there also are some of the other hotkeys that you can use for scale up or down, reset, remove, save as, and new work area. Sometimes if I'm bringing parts in, I don't like how they're sitting. Sometimes I will press the new work area. It'll ask if you want to save. Pressing no, it'll give you a brand new work area to start. So those are all the buttons on the left-hand side. Let's go to the top and learn a little bit. This is the import, export. That will export the file. I do use the save a lot. Pressing save, we could save this STL as owl millimeters 2, and it'll save this file as an STL with two owls in it. This is really useful if you're modifying a part or if you're having multiple parts in one build area. Going over, we have the print button, the settings, and the about. Let's go down to the lower right hand corner and find out what this eye is used for. This is called the print mode. By clicking the print mode, and it takes a second, if the machine is connected over Wi-Fi or USB, it will tell me the heated bed and the extruder temperatures. This is really nice if you want to see what the heated bed is, or if your machine is connected. So we can just press hide on this. In the upper right hand corner, we have the objects list. This just tells me how many objects are in the build area. And you're also able to click on this. So if it is kind of hard to click on the part, or if they're really small and it's not clickable, you can easily just use the objects list to click on the parts. The next button is the extrude or laser. Right now, the laser has not been released, but there should be some more connectivity once the laser is installed into the XYZware coming in the future. But let's learn a little bit about how to use the settings. Clicking the settings button, there are a couple different tabs. With the general, you can change your language. And you also could, if you'd like to participate in the user experience to improve the program. I typically like to turn this on because I have seen the software have a couple bugs, and maybe this will help out XYZprinting to do some improvements in the software. The edit button, this is just, you can do your default settings, millimeters or inches. 90% of the parts that are STLs are typically in millimeters, so I'll leave this default as millimeters. Your printer just tells you what printer you have and what kind of connections that you can have. If you see below, there's a Vinci 1.0 Pro 3-in-1. This is not for sale yet, but this software will be used for that as well. And here's one thing I like to do is I always will change the extruder color, and this is just for the screen preview, but I like to change the extruder one color to some other color than black. With my software, black was the default of what it was printing in, but I like to change it to blue, and you can see, I think it's a little bit easier to see the parts with blue. There's the About button. The About button will take a sec to load. But the About will tell you the version of the software you're printing, your serial number, and any other pertinent information. And let's get into the last button, and that's actually the Print button. So clicking the Print button, we'll walk through of my settings of how I print and maybe some tricks with the machine. But the first tab is your Printer button, and this will allow you to choose some of your different defaults for your printers, your cartridge material. It is really nice that XYZprinting has included some ABS and PLA defaults. And if you guys are new to 3D printing, the cartridge that comes with the DaVinci Pro should be ABS, so just leave this in your ABS default. Don't change your nozzle one temperatures or your build heated bed temperatures right now. Leave that alone. But you are able to adjust your heated bed temperatures as well as your nozzle temperatures just by clicking up or down. Let's go to the General tab, and the General tab will allow you to change your layer heights. The layer heights for this machine are 0.05 to all the way up to 4 millimeters. I typically see myself printing 3 millimeters to 2 millimeters, depending on what I'm printing. Now, I just recently printed a rocket nose cone, and I printed at 4 millimeters because I was going to vapor smooth it, and I didn't have to have as much detail, and it worked out great. But it all depends on what you're printing and what build quality that you like. This machine is able to print at the 0.05 millimeter layer height, but it does take a long time. So if you guys are new to 3D printing and you want to have great resolution, please start at 0.2 millimeters, and then you can work your way down. Don't open this up and say, hey, let's do the highest or the lowest layer height I can at your first print. A 3D printer is only as good as the user, so take your time, learn about your machine, and you will see the great results that the XYZ printer can do for you. But let's set the default to 0.2 millimeters. Now, you can change the shell thickness. The shell thickness can be 1 all the way up to 10. And again, you can type in these numbers for your shell thickness. A good default is 2. That's the standard. But if you want to have in the XYZware for the DaVinci 1.0, shell thickness that is thin was 1, normal was 2, and thick was 3. So that gives you kind of an idea if you want to adjust that. I typically leave my top surface at 3. Depending on if it's a really flat, big surface, I might bump that up to 4 or 5. The bottom surface, 2 usually works pretty well. If you want watertight, I would bump it up to a 3, but let's just drop that to a 2. And here you can adjust the infill density. Now, depending on what kind of part you guys are printing, adjusting your infill density can speed up the print or make the part a lot stronger, depending on what you're looking for. Typically, for a more artistic piece like this, I'll set it at 10% infill. But if you want to have a very mechanical part, 75 to 95% infill will give you an extremely strong part. Now, for small details, the infill density is good, but don't forget, when you're designing a part, always try to design it with strength in mind. There are 2 settings for the infill type. There's rectilinear that will print the part much quicker. For the DaVinci 1.0, all the prints were rectilinear, but now The software, the new Vinci Wear Pro introduces the honeycomb pattern, and this does give you more strength. It does take a little bit longer to print, but typically I'll print everything with honeycomb for me. But we're going to set this to 10. Going over to speeds, these are speeds for your shell, infill, and other. Again, if you're using standard filament, I would leave these alone. If you guys are going into more exotics like nylon or polycarbonate or woodo, you can go and play with some of these settings to make your parts print better. But for run-of-the-mill PLA and ABS, just leave these alone. Supports, this will give you the option now that you can do a raft, a brim, or add supports. Again, supports is pretty simple here. In the Vinci XYZware, they had low, standard, and high densities for the supports. I typically go with standard if I was going to do supports. This part I know doesn't need supports, but this is one area. XYZprinting, if you're listening, guys, if you could please work in your supports a little bit. I found that some of the newer softwares, the support generation is much cleaner and easier to break away. Even MakerBot's new support system for their Makerware has much better supports than this. So, guys, if you're listening, please try to update your supports a little bit. But they do work, so if you guys do have overhangs, the supports do work. And the last button is your retraction. And with retraction, this is a Bowden style setup extruder. It is not as long as the Ultimaker for the tube size, but it is probably 100 millimeters long tube. So you're able to adjust some of your retraction settings. Again, if you guys are just starting printing, you don't really need to modify this. So let's go back and to show some of the information if you guys are just starting to 3D print, what I would suggest to modify. If you are modifying your layer height, that's good. Modifying your shell thickness, good. Top and bottom surface, and your infill density. So the general tab, if you guys are new to 3D printing, this is all I would be modifying right now. Going back into the printer settings, you are able to save this setting. For example, I can save this setting as, let's just save it as 0.2 millimeters 10 infill. One thing, guys, you can see there is a lot more space to type in, but these are really short, so you can't put a lot. So let's just do 10 IN ABS, and I can't even type in all the way ABS. But if you type in yes, it will save your profile, so you guys can always go back into your default profiles. When you guys are ready and your machine's connected, just press the print button, and the software will start slicing the object. So let's let it slice. I'm going to fast forward, and we'll jump back into after the part is sliced. So there we go. The part is ready to 3D print. And to give you guys a little bit of information, this is a little bit of a longer print. But this print should take no more than 22.5 hours, 76 meters of filament. And you guys can see my cartridge says 0, and this is because I'm running a third-party filament. But I'm going to press save and cancel real quick. If you just keep on letting it go down, it will start printing, but I'm going to press save and cancel. And I'm going to save this as al.3m. This is really nice if you guys want to save it for the future. So you're pressing save, and there we go. So now the part has been saved, and if you want to, you can zoom in and see the layer height of the parts. So there we go. You can kind of see the layer height of these parts, and there we go. So this is saved now as a .3w file, and that's how you use the XYZware for Pro. Guys, if you got any questions or some of my settings or any questions you have, please leave them below. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Guys, if you like my video, please subscribe to my channel. And you should be seeing more videos about the DaVinci Pro 1.0 coming out soon. Mark signing off.